Hi, I'm Heather Groom, and thanks for coming back to my podcast. I've got an exciting episode today where I have a very special guest. And just thinking about who I wanted to have as my first guest, I thought it has to be somebody pretty special to me. And I came up with my first volunteer, and that would be my husband, Brent. So I have him today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Brent Groom. And I'm glad you're one of my
I like
guests.
to be the guinea pig. I'm good.
Yes, and he's my first guest. So
Thank you. Yes.
Anyway, have you ever had a podcast? Have you ever been on a podcast?
This is a first.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
You've had many firsts with me, haven't you? Yes. Well, so let's see. So what questions? I've thought about what questions we should ask you.
Okay.
And I thought it would be fun to talk about kind of our early origins in real estate, yes. Our adventures just in being married for close to 30 years, right?
Yes.
Not yet, but almost. So yeah, I was just thinking about like our first house. And when we were college students, we were down at BYU and Brent had kind of a real job, right?
I had a tech job at a startup and got to learn a lot, worked with some great people. And we were living downtown Provo. We just saw the house yesterday.
Actually, yesterday we drove by it. It was an apartment, yes.
Nice brick place with a cool archway going into the
it looks exactly the same, by the way. No remodel necessary.
I think there are
because it's Provo, right?
16 units in this little complex, and we had an amazing price on rent, and we paid down a lot of debt.
Yes, we did. Yeah. So then we decided to buy a house because we were also not going to stay in Utah permanently because our parents were in other states. But we thought, it's still a good investment, so let's buy a house. And so
you found.
I don't even remember how we found it.
I don't know how you found it somehow. Yeah, it was a development in Lehigh, brand new
I had
starter
heard
homes.
Our friends had mentioned it. And they had said, hey, we're thinking about buying one of these homes. And it was 1,400 square feet. So it was like 3 bedrooms and an office, kind of like a split level. So it was pretty small, no basement, out in West Lehigh. Well, what was considered West Lehigh at the time. Like it was like all farm fields. And that would have been
built
back
on
in
alfalfa fields originally. Yeah.
Was it in 96? 96, I think. No, sorry. No, it wasn't.
98, 99.
Yeah, 98 and 99. So
and the builder put together this plan, 45 days to build the whole house.
Start to finish.
And they hit it. It was pretty.
They actually really did build our house in 45 days, which was insane. And we spent about $105,000, I think, on the house. So I remember we were freaking out because our house payment was going to be like almost $1,000 or $1,000 a month. And we were like, that's so expensive.
That's right. No, I remember a lesson in mowing your lawn. It was an alfalfa field before with like super good fertilizer. And I didn't mow right at the end of the season. And then I was a little late in the beginning of the season mowing. And it ended up being too high. Like the grass got, like with all that fertilizer, the grass was super tall. We had to hire somebody. I remember this.
I don't remember.
He filled out the back of his pickup truck with all the clippings. It was like, 8 feet tall, this massive mound.
I do remember this.
Of all the grass.
And then we had a lot of mixed in alfalfa with the grass. But that's another whole thing. Yeah. Yes. But so when you build on farmland, you sometimes get extra little souvenirs.
Garden. That would have been.
I know, right? Yes. So that was kind of starting off our real estate journey. It was a good house. It was a good investment for us. We still actually stay in touch with a lot of those neighbors.
Yeah.
So what lessons did we learn from that house? And then we moved on to our next house, which also you thought I was a little bit crazy. Let's be honest. You thought I was a little crazy when I was like,
we did a lot ourselves on that. We did the irrigation system, pulled that line, and I remember walking around the house.
Yes.
Oh, I need to do this. And then I'd walk to the other side to do it. And then I'd think, actually, I need to do that first. And then I ended up just going in circles.
Well, and do you remember putting in the sprinklers?
That's what,
yes.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. But I still have a little trauma around the sprinklers.
Yes.
Do you remember why?
Well, yeah, because you were doing that like the day right around pregnancy.
It was the day after I had my son. So the trencher showed up while I was in the hospital to trench our backyard. and put it like, 'cause we were going to do the sprinkler pipe. And so anyway, but my water broke. And so you were like, how do I go and pay the trencher? I got to go pay the trenching guy at the hospital. And I was like, get the yard done. I just want the yard done. And so I think we somehow got a check to him. I don't even remember that piece. But anyway, I remember we got him like the
I
money.
don't
And then I
recall.
came back
Yeah.
from the hospital and I was like gluing sprinkler pipe with my newborn baby in the carrier. And Brent was like, I only have 2 days off work. So we're like, okay, we have
Yeah.
to hurry and get the yard in. Do you remember that? I do.
Vaguely.
I
I'm
remember
sure
it.
you do.
I
It's
remember
probably
it
seared.
well. Yes. That was a good
Mm.
time. Luckily he slept quite a bit. So
Yes.
yes. But anyway, that got us kind of started.
hmm
And that was a really good investment
Yeah, and
for
then
us.
there came time we were thinking about another house, and we were thinking we wanted to build, right? And
Yes.
so we were looking for lots, and it was a little difficult, but you happened to be driving by a lot in Lehigh, and the sign had just gone up,
Like
right?
30 minutes earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so you gave the guy a call and gave the spiel, and
I was like, and I have
you
no idea
told
what we're doing,
you
but I
told a
knew I
good
know I want this lot.
yeah, I mean, he wanted to make sure that it was going to somebody that would use it, that would
Yeah.
know what they were doing, and we didn't, but you did a great job telling the story
I at
that
least sold him on
you
it.
totally sold them
Yes.
on it, and that was and then we found a builder,
Hmm.
and that was a experience too.
That was an interesting
That
experience.
builder went out of business, mostly partway through, went bankruptcy.
Yeah. So
When,
most people, they wonder why I do construction or why I know about
Mhm.
construction. So meanwhile, I have like a 2-year-old on my hip. Was I pregnant? I think I was pregnant with Carter, so I'm throwing up like all over the place, right? Like everywhere. And so I have a 2-year-old. Luckily, I speak Spanish. I go into the house, and there's like at one point we had like a sheriff's for sale sign in the yard because he
That
was
was a little
going.
later,
Was
even.
that later after
Uh-huh.
we closed?
Yeah, but I
That's
think the
right.
builder only showed up at the house twice.
I think he only showed up at our house twice.
We had a pretty good foreman.
Yeah, the foreman was pretty decent, but anyway, but we ended up just kind of taking it
We were
over.
there almost every
So I
day.
was there. Well, I was there every day, like
Mhm.
with kids and, like I said, throwing up and kid on my hip, and then
Mhm.
kind of learning different Spanish, like how do you say drywall? How do you say, sewer pipe? Things like that.
Mhm.
And so I just kind of got into the construction of it. And since he had never really
Mhm.
shown up at our house and didn't know what was going on, we just kind of took that over.
Yeah, and the
And then we had a
basement.
good neighbor that also was a general. And so
That's right.
he hand milled actually like our baseboards. He was
He did
like,
all the finish
wow,
work. He's
you
so good.
should think about being a general or something. And I was like, oh no, 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 no.
Yeah, and then we moved in, and the basement was unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
So then we ended up finishing the basement, hired people out. I dabbled in doing metal framing for the 2x4s instead of 2x4 wood.
Would you do that again?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So for those on here, just know, don't do metal framing. It's really appealing. It sounds really good.
It's a good idea, but then you don't actually have studs if you ever want to put something on the wall that
It's difficult.
you don't have a
Yes.
stud to put it into.
Yes.
Anyway, it was a novelty.
Yes.
I think I did one room, and then
you had me hold the
then the rest.
sheetrock. I remember holding the sheetrock above my head, and like the sheetrock is like falling into my eyes.
Yeah,
and
then we
I think I
decided to
quit
hire
on you. I
that.
think I was like, I'm done.
Then we
Yeah,
hired somebody for that. Yeah.
Yes. I think I said, okay, I draw the line here.
And then we had a
So,
jigsaw puzzle in the furnace room,
yes.
and I tried to cut that. It was probably 10
That was
times to
fun.
get the piece in place.
Yes. So that was house
Hire
2.
drywall.
Yeah, hire just whatever you do, don't do drywall yourself.
That was-
Like, let me just
It's
tell you.
not as easy as
It's
it looks.
important to have straight walls and things
Mhm.
like that. So yes, that then we did some of the work we did
Yeah.
like ourselves, but we started just subbing it out as well. And then
Mhm.
I don't know, and then we kind of thought about moving to Australia. That's another whole thing.
Mhm.
But then we
You
actually
started
sold our
doing-
house too.
You started doing mortgages at that time.
That's right. I was doing mortgage
Mhm.
origination. And
Mhm.
so I was doing that as kind of a little side work while I
Mhm.
had 2 kids.
Yeah,
And then,
you're always good at making phone calls and helping people.
yes. And I did
Mhm.
love helping people, like with
Mhm.
mortgages, because I remember it was at a time when people were refinancing, which, by the way, our first loan, do you remember what the percentage was at?
It was higher.
do.
I don't remember.
Well, at the time, our parents thought we like won the lottery because they were like, "You're getting a loan for 7 7/8." I remember it was just
Mm.
shy of 8%, and we were over the moon. We were like, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
then we refinanced over the years,
Yeah.
down,
Mm-hmm.
as it got into like the, sixes, fives,
Mm-hmm.
and anyway, so I just remember that. But then, but what's funny is I don't really remember our other interest rates because interest rates just kind of vary. So you don't
Yeah.
really need to make a decision on interest rates. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
know if the house is the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes. Anyway, so go on. You're my
So
guest.
you
I
were
need to ask
brilliant.
you
No,
questions.
you were brilliant on that topic because as you saw the changes in the landscape in mortgages, you realized something big is happening, is about to happen.
In a bad way. This is in
Yeah. Uh-huh.
2006.
Yep. And so we at that point we decided to put the current house on the market,
Well,
and
actually, even before that, I pulled out our
we
equity.
yeah, we prepped for, a change, and so we pulled equity out of the house, kept in the bank, and then sold the house. And we didn't know where we were going yet, but that was when the market was pretty low. Luckily, our that
It,
price range
yeah, well,
was
first
pretty good.
before that, like, do you remember it was
Mm,
like I got out of mortgages because I started seeing all these really weird things happen.
mm-hmm,
And I even had somebody ask me at one point to falsify information. And I basically said, no, that's not who I am. I'm never going to do
mm-hmm,
anything like that. And they said, well, then we'll go to somebody who will. And I was like, okay. And he's like, you know that this is happening all over. And that was when I decided to get out of mortgages. I said,
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm seeing too many crazy things happen. And I told Brent, I said, we joke around now about, I said,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, somebody could make a Netflix movie about the stay at home mom that's got like two kids at home. That was me. And I was like, the market is going to really just melt down because of this. And nobody really believed me. But I was like, there's too much inventory out there. There's all this fraud happening. There's just weird things. And so I told Brand, I said, I remember this because we were like, okay, let's pull out our equity. Let's
Mm-hmm.
wait. We sold our house. And then we waited until basically everything was at like the all time low.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think now we need to buy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so we had an awesome agent. Heather wasn't an agent yet. And so we had a really good agent that helped us
he's
find a
he's
house.
still a good friend. And
Still a good friend. And he had really good sheets. These are the houses we're going to go look at. And there were some amazing deals. And
yeah,
so we found a good neighborhood that we loved, beautiful
there were
homes.
so
And
many spec homes. It was like a
mhm,
ghost town.
yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah.
And so, but good
Mm,
people over there. And we basically just said, okay, one of these will work.
yeah.
And we weren't afraid of construction.
Hmm.
So we were like,
Yeah.
well,
So we found a
okay.
house that didn't have a basement that was finished.
Didn't have a
Yeah.
yard. Didn't have a lot of stuff actually.
That's right.
So
Yeah. The AC units had been ripped out.
they had even
There were no
they had broken the
appliances.
cabinet.
That's
Somebody
right.
came in and broke the cabinets.
Hmm.
They had stolen out all of it. Had wasp nests inside the house because
Hmm.
it had been sitting for almost 2 years empty. And
Smoke
so,
detectors were
oh, the smoke
making
detectors
their
were going
noise.
off, and there was like an inch of
It
dust
was funny.
everywhere.
Yeah. You walk in the front door and there's dust everywhere. So you could actually, it was interesting because you could see how many people had walked the house.
Yeah,
And the steps would go into the front room like 5 or 10 steps, and then they'd go back out.
like
Like
people had opened the
nobody,
door and then left.
nobody,
Nobody wanted
nobody
this
walked
house.
through it.
Well, because
Yeah.
it was a little bit of a crazy house. It had weird paint colors. They had gone kind of
Hmm.
modern, well, what they thought was modern. So it had black
Hmm.
baseboards, black trim everywhere, which
That's
actually
right.
now is like not as crazy, but back then that was a little bit like nobody had seen anything
Hmm.
like that. So it
Yeah.
was like black trim. We had red walls, yellow walls, orange walls, bright walls, but the quality of the build was nice. And I
Oh
kept
yeah,
saying,
it was
I
solid.
know this is a really nice, like
Hmm.
flooring. The flooring was amazing. And I had like a vision for how that house needed
Yeah.
to
So we
look.
kind of fell in love with it, and we
Sort
really
of in a
enjoyed the
really
house
weird
in a weird
way.
way. We're like, there are great bones here, and we can
At
make this a
first, did you
nice
think we
home.
were crazy? Well, the first time
Not
you walked through
totally.
it,
I
I
was
don't
like,
think you were in love with it though.
I don't know. I like the modern look, so I liked
Well,
it. Yeah.
yes, but you were
Yeah.
like, this is a lot of work.
It's a little bit.
A
Yeah.
lot. And it
Yeah.
was. Actually, I think, did we grossly underestimate that?
7 year reno.
Yeah, we
Yes.
thought it would take 2 years. Took how long?
Yeah.
Probably seven.
About seven.
About seven to do all of our projects in there because we had to finish the basement, rip
Yeah.
out the rock
The
wall.
final project was the shutters on the front of the house. The painter was a little late getting them to us, and finally put them up on the house. And like 3 minutes later, we had the drone shots.
We actually had our like
for
photographer
selling. Yeah,
there. And I had
mhm,
just actually I got my license the day before I listed our house
that's right. So backing
because
up though, so this was your first like masterful negotiation example.
when we
Is
purchased
when we
it.
purchased this
Yes.
house, and it was at a pretty good price originally, but
Yes.
we were definitely scraping to get into it.
Well,
Like
because
we
nobody
had
was qualifying for loans at the
no,
time,
and
like
so
no one. And luckily, you had a great job at Microsoft, so you'd been there for a while. So people they were like, "Okay, you're about the only person that
but we
qualifies
I
for a
mean we
loan."
definitely were stretching
Oh, we were
to get into
stretching
this.
for
It was
sure.
all we could do to get into this, but we knew we had to. And so it was bank owned at the time,
Yes.
and they were a little bit slower getting back. So we put together an offer and we gave them 3 days to get
Yeah.
back to it. And they were not replying, not replying. And so Heather, what do you say? You told our agent, hey, look, if they miss the deadline, we're dropping our offer price by
10,000.
10,000.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, and I'm really sticking to
And he's
it.
like, yeah, yeah. And he went and tried to get it move faster. And they replied, 12, 24 hours after the deadline. And you stuck to your guns and said, well,
I said, nope.
they
Now it's
lost
ten
out. Now
thousand
it's
dollars
ten thousand
less.
dollars less. And so he said, well,
He said,
okay.
nobody does this. And I said, well, because now I'm moving on. I said, I'm not emotionally attached to this house
Yeah.
because it's a lot of work. And at the time, there were all these homes just sitting on the
Hmm.
market. So we had our pick
Yeah.
of whatever. Actually, what I really wanted to do, still a little sad I didn't do it, is I thought about buying 10 lots in the area. Do you remember that? And I
Hmm.
said, we should just go live in that townhome for 2 years with all of our kids everywhere. Who cares? Pay for a
Hmm.
storage unit and then buy those 10 lots and make a ton of money. And if we would have done that, we would have made a lot of money. But we didn't. We ended up
We would have
buying
been in a
this.
townhome though.
We would have
So
been in a townhome for two
yeah.
years with kids and probably a little going crazy. But that's okay. But we ended up saying, okay, we got this house, but we did get the $10,000 off. And I was very happy about that. So that did help us.
Yeah, and we still had plenty of learning growth
Yes.
experiences. I think
Yes, we
one
did.
Christmas we spent in the basement while the upstairs was getting repainted,
They were supposed to be
and
done
that
before
they were
Christmas.
supposed to be done before Thanksgiving, and there was a little
And
bit.
then they had like the two partners anyway. We won't go into too much drama, but they had some drama between them. The one partner wouldn't show up without the other, and I was like, I don't really care who's here. Just paint my house, get it done,
Hmm.
and be done.
Yeah.
So the two painters like took turns. It was just kind of bizarre. And then we ended up having Christmas. Like I had like this Charlie Brown Christmas tree that was half lit. Remember,
Uh-huh.
because
In
part
the
of the lights
basement.
went
Uh-huh.
out. So it sat on top of the air hockey table. And
Hmm.
that was our Christmas that year. It was like, hey, we're going to have our tree. Okay, kids, we're living in the basement.
Hmm.
So fun. We didn't have a kitchen. And this was before the days of like Uber Eats or anything like that.
Hmm.
So I don't even remember what we did.
I don't recall.
I
Yeah.
it's kind of
Hmm.
blocked from my memory, I
Hmm.
think. But there were some good aspects about that Christmas. But
Yes.
yes. So then, okay, skipping forward.
So yeah, that was your first masterful negotiation tactic
Yes.
on a real estate. So
And ironically, that's the
and it
house
worked
then
out.
that I sold, and that was my first,
That's right.
like,
Yeah. So
that was
jumping
my
back to
first
that.
one.
So we put the shutters up. Heather, you'd gotten your
I had the
license.
photographer waiting
You
there.
got your license like the day before, and then that night we stayed up until
It
midnight getting the photos live and
was
making sure the listing was
exhausting.
done. And
I had already staged everything
that
in
was
the
your first
house.
MLS
Everybody,
entry.
including you were a little bit like, hey, you might be losing it a little bit. Because I was like, we
You're
have
pretty
to have
driven.
this. I
You're
was
pretty driven on
driven
the date.
on the date. I was like, we have to
Hmm.
have this up on April 7th, no matter what.
Hmm. And
So,
we hit it.
and
It was the
we hit
deadline.
it, and we got an offer that next day. So it was a good thing we put it up that night at
Yeah.
like midnight.
Hmm.
And then I just remember the agent, who I'm actually still very good friends with, when she
Hmm.
called me, she was using all these acronyms. I had no idea what she was talking about, and she was like, "Oh, do you have this and the blah
Hmm.
blah blah?" And I was like, "Okay, wait. I remember Rep C means real estate purchase contract. And so I remember I was like, okay." So I'm like trying to translate everything, and then finally I said, you know. I said, I just wanted to let you know that This is actually my house, and this is my very first transaction. I got my license yesterday, and I said, "So please don't take advantage of me." I said, "I will try really hard to
Hmm.
keep up." And then she was so sweet about it, and she was nice, and she laughed about it. And I said, "And I really don't know what in the hell I'm doing." That was my exact quote. I said, "I'd like to think I do, but like I joke around now and say real estate school teaches you how not to go to jail, but it doesn't really teach you how to do real estate."
Hmm.
So luckily I'd been around it my whole life. I'd always been making really good real estate decisions. My dad was a broker, but there was a lot that I didn't know. Well, actually,
Hmm.
like I really knew very little.
But you knew the market.
Yes,
And the one thing I love to do is I love to do spreadsheets. And so
which is
I had a really
amazing.
good Google spreadsheet going with like the price per square foot. And we did this market analysis and somewhat, I mean, you just knew it in your brain essentially. And so we would play with the numbers on the price per square foot and then
Yep.
get the final target that we wanted for the house. And it was definitely above the market, what the market was currently paying. It was kind of at the top.
Hmm.
But you're like, no, this is the right number, and we listed it and it sold.
And
So
do you
you
remember
did
what we
such a good
did? It
job.
was so funny because that was like we had the walkthrough. We posted it at midnight.
Hmm.
The guy missed his flight the night before, so he was in town.
Hmm.
Saw it that night at like 1 a.m., came and visited it at 8 a.m. before his flight,
Hmm.
made us an offer. Like I said, my head's even spinning. I'm like, I have a license and I'm new.
I just remember sitting in
I
my
don't
car
remember.
when the offer came in
I called you.
with the, did I have the cat in the car for
We
some
had
reason?
I had the cat. I went
Okay.
and got the cat out of like this boarding place and it's running around my head and like it's clawing. And I was like, I don't even care because I'm selling my house right now. So whatever, cat. And so the cat was being crazy. And then our son was working at Harvest Restaurant. And so I remember he was like, ha ha ha, if you sell the house and get an offer, you'll have to come in for lunch. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay. And so then,
That's right.
do you remember what we
Hmm.
did?
Yeah, yeah, we went into Harvest Restaurant and
We looked so bad because we'd been like moving
hmm.
stuff all day.
Yeah,
And so but this is
yeah,
just when we got the offer.
yeah.
So
Andrew was working. He's like, he couldn't believe
he
it.
couldn't believe it. He was like, "You didn't really get an offer on the house." We're like, "Yeah, we
Hmm.
literally did. We're under contract and we're moving forward and hopefully we close in 30 days." And we
Yeah.
did.
Hmm.
And it was great. And then I actually stayed in touch with that realtor. She's still one of my dear friends. And
Hmm.
so it was pretty funny. Uh, yeah, anyway, she was great to work with. And then she was
Hmm.
like, "You should be doing this full time." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa." Like, I don't know, because I've been in politics, I've been doing education things.
Hmm.
I wasn't like ready, to commit yet to doing full
Yeah,
time,
but
but which was
you
actually
took on some pretty big
yeah,
houses.
I did.
Your next house was another million, well, over $1 million house. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
and you did an awesome job at that, and making sure that the negotiations for the buyer and seller, there's always something in real estate that people are attached to, and you have to talk through and help
It's
people,
true.
let go of a dresser or whatever it might be.
Or
Um,
the $5 IKEA hooks on the wall, or
Yeah,
yes,
or
different
a
things.
signed autographed picture,
Yes,
whatever it might
yes,
be to help sell the
yes.
deal.
Yep, that is
Uh,
true. I've had
there are
some
many
crazy
ways.
things. Yes, that is true. But then we sold that house, and then we moved too many times after that. Actually, everything else we had stayed in for
I have to
several
take a deep
years.
breath.
I
Yeah, I
know.
think we moved 7 times in 5 years after that.
Yes, because we had like some temporary homes, then we built a home, then we had a
Renting in a townhome and a
yes.
house and somebody's our
Oh,
friend's good friend's basement. They were kind enough.
yes. To
That
let
was a
us
good
stay
time though.
there as well.
Hmm.
So, yep, we've had a lot of interesting adventures. Now I feel like we're pretty good at moving, but I don't want to do that again for a while. But
Yeah.
we kind of have mastered that. I would say Brent's
Hmm.
very like extraordinary actually about that. He's like he gets a plan and he's like, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm like, great,
I'm good at
just
hiding
you run.
things.
Yeah, he's really good at that. Like if we have company, all of a sudden I'm like, where did that whole pile of stuff go? He's like, oh, I put it somewhere. I'm like, okay, great. So
Good luck finding it.
then I don't know where it is, but that's okay.
The
Yes.
next move, we find it.
Yes, that is true, actually. Okay, so kind of going back to when I sold that house and I got my real estate license,
Hmm.
I had already been doing Airbnb properties. We had already purchased two Airbnbs
Hmm.
at that time for
Yeah,
probably how many years? Probably at least 5 years when we sold, I
a
would
little less,
think.
but yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
bought some
had
Sand Hollow homes. Yeah.
yeah, we bought some homes at Sand Hollow that were nightly rentals. So at the
Hmm.
time I was already doing Airbnb, but I was not a realtor.
Hmm.
And then I had friends and clients, and oh, I call them clients now, but like friends asking and saying, "Hey, you're doing this Airbnb. Should we do this? And what did you do for it?" And they were asking me questions. And so we were already, so just to be clear, we were already a little bit in investor world. We were just
Hmm.
starting out, and I joke around and I say we did everything wrong. So that's one reason I'm starting this podcast is because I learned so much
Oh
from
yeah.
those first two
Yeah,
Airbnbs.
we learned about how property management companies work, how critical they are, how it's important to have not necessarily a monopoly, but have some competition in the property management companies. So then, you know, they're motivated to keep it clean, motivated to get it rented.
Yeah.
Um, what else? Furnishing.
Well, okay, so we might as well to jump into that one
Yeah.
because then that's when we
Mm-hmm.
started actually looking at starting a furniture store. So we had even looked at
Mm-hmm.
opening up a store somewhere in northern Utah County, furniture. So we had already been kind of looking at that. Then
Mm-hmm.
we did these two Airbnbs, and and at the time I was like driving all over town to save five
You would
dollars.
find these great deals. Your sister worked at the furniture show down in Vegas, so found
Yes.
great deals there. And the houses weren't done yet, so we had to get a rental unit, a
It
storage
was
unit down there and store
crazy.
them. And then found great deals in Lehigh. And then
Were
what?
those still great deals? Probably not.
And then you say, and then the house closed, and then it's like, oh, Brent, you got to figure out how to get all this to the house. So I rented a U-Haul, took it from Lehigh all the way to Las Vegas, gathered all this stuff, and then
Because we had a
took
storage
it in.
unit, we bought stuff at a store, we bought that, we parceled it all together,
Oh my
drove it
gosh.
down there, and then something was broken, so then you can't return that. And then what most people don't realize
But we
is
got
that,
it for like 15% off.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
he's joking because that 15% ended up costing us probably so much like time, brain
Hmm.
damage,
A lot of driving.
a lot of driving. We probably
Hmm.
didn't save any little bit of money, really.
No.
And people tend to overbuy. One thing that people don't realize is that if they do their own Airbnb, they tend to buy too much. And they start with very few things, but then they tend to over decorate. They end up buying just too much stuff. And then
Hmm.
it's not returnable. So then you start looking at what you've paid and it ends
Hmm.
up not paying off. So
I
we made
remember
basically every
I
mistake.
remember putting together the patio furniture, and our good friends
We
were
had like
over.
8-year-olds
We
helping
had
and our friends,
how
and
many kids do we have? We must have seven
we
or
have
eight
seven
kids.
between us. Or no,
So
sorry. Well, yeah, because was he born? I'm sure he was. But we probably
yeah,
had eight. There were eight of us.
8 kids, and we thought, okay, we have all this patio furniture. It can't take
We
that
thought
long
these
to
kids are
put
going to be able to
together.
help.
So what we put on a movie and started putting furniture together. Oh my gosh, it was hours.
It was
All of
ours.
us working. It was a lot of hours.
We thought, oh, this isn't going to take too
It
long to
probably
set
took three
everything up.
hours with all of us
Oh
putting it
yeah, I'm
together.
sure there were tears. There was everything. It was yeah. We were like mean because we had them, like everybody assembling furniture, but um, but yes. So we had yeah, those were good times. But we learned a lot with furniture. So then,
Hmm.
kind of skipping forward, we were still looking at doing a furniture store originally.
Hmm.
And then when I started doing real estate, and I've shared this before on an earlier podcast, I thought I would just do it part time. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this for my family and friends who want Airbnbs and maybe in my neighborhood. But I didn't really have like the vision of having a real estate business that I owned. I think I looked at myself as doing real estate, but I didn't really see myself as like, hey, I'm going to build this amazing company that helps people. And of course, I wanted to help people, but I just didn't see and have that vision. So I was in,
When did that
do you
change?
remember? I was going to say, you remember probably one of the
Mm, yeah.
experiences, but I did everything kind of at a part time. I kind of joke and say I kind of put this cap on myself. Like it was self-inflicted really, but I basically just said, okay, I want to do this part-time. I wasn't sure if I was going to do anything back in politics again. And so I just kind of kept the door open. But I've always loved real estate. My whole life, people have always told me, you should be a realtor. You should be. And
Mhm.
I'd always would help find homes for people. And I'd be like, oh, I one time set up my one friend to buy my other friend's house. And so I'd always been kind of involved. And then do
Mhm.
you remember when one night, do you remember what happened?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. You tell the story. Yeah.
I don't know.
So what do you?
Maybe
Yeah.
you should tell a story.
What was your view? You're like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready to come. What
I,
was the word?
I just said, I said I'm the chains are coming off. I said I'm want to do this full time, and
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
said I've thought and had a lower mindset for too long, and I said I just need your support. And I remember I came to you. I was very sincere, and I was like, think I want to do this full time. I'm diving in, and I need your support and your help. And I said because I want to just do this to the very best I can, and I want to help people. And in all, like, now this is where I get to kind of, brag on Brent for a minute, but without any hesitation, he was like, of course I'm going to help. And I'm totally supportive. And he's like, you do great, and you're helping so many people. And because my business was growing at the
Hmm.
time, and he was like, I'm totally in, there to help you. And I remember I just actually felt like this energy surge. It was like a very specific experience that I had, and it was like I'm ready to do this.
And I was kind of like, I've known this,
Yeah, and that's
and
actually that's actually what you said.
hmm
Yeah, do you remember that? What
hmm
did you say?
yeah, I just said, I know you're ready to do it, and just go be successful.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew you could do it.
Yes. And so we kind of had this like race that year. And in fact, so that year was, was a good year. And then
Hmm.
I was kind of trash talking, in marriage, you kind of do that once in a while. And so I
That's
started
right.
talking trash, and I said, hey, you want to know what else? I said, I'm going to do this full time. And I said, and eventually I'm going to make more money than you. And he goes, do it. Like that's what he was like, do
That's right.
it. And you were like, okay.
Hmm.
And I was so nervous because then that year, like Brent's
Mm.
like, meanwhile, Mr. Spreadsheet. So he's keeping a
I already knew
spreadsheet
the
of
answer.
everything. No, 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 you
Yeah,
were
yeah.
keeping a spreadsheet, and you were like, okay. And you're like, here's yours needs to look like. And I was like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that. And so, but then I couldn't withdraw, right? Because
Hmm.
like the race is on. So I remember like we were nervous. We go all the way to the accountant's office, like because I knew it was close that year, and I was like, okay, this is going to be close. And I really thought I was defeated. And I remember Brent looked at me and he was like, whoever wins today, like it's okay because you came really close. We did really well, but we had forgotten about done a little contracting work too. And so anyway, we get in there, and neither of us really knew the answer for sure, 100%.
I was pretty sure.
You were pretty sure, but
Yeah.
but you weren't 100%. And so
Mm.
we had the accountant figure everything out, and we said, okay, who won this year? And he looks and he goes, Heather by $500. And I started
Hmm.
to like cry because I
Hmm.
couldn't believe it. I was so
Yeah.
excited. I was like, yay. And then I was like, okay, that was a lot. But
Yeah.
anyway,
That's good.
it was wild.
And it hasn't changed.
Yeah. Well, it
It's more than
hasn't.
500.
Yes, but
Hmm.
some years, yes. But it was, yes, but I couldn't do it without Brent's help. So it was, yeah, it was quite a
Hmm.
moment though. For me, it was
Hmm.
very empowering,
Hmm.
and it was a sign that, hey, you know what? I love what I do, and I've shared this before, but for that first year or two, I didn't ever really look at my commissions ever.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
purposely, do you remember
Hmm.
that?
Hmm.
I on purpose never looked
Yeah.
at my commissions
Why is that?
because I
You
love
didn't
that
look at
Brent's
you
interviewing
didn't look at the
me.
BAC, the buyers.
Yeah, I didn't look at
What does
what
that
they were
stand for?
offering, buyer's agent commission.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never looked at that because I never
Hmm.
wanted it to taint what I was helping my clients find. So there were times where I would make almost no money on a house, and sometimes I did, and I just figured it would work out.
Hmm.
And but at the time, I wanted to train myself to never let that influence me because I knew too many other people that was something that drove them a little bit more. But I always wanted to be very service focused, and have the opinion that, and I still do, that if, it's one of my, I think, core values is that if you do the right thing for the right reason, and helping people with that intent, then everything
Hmm.
else works out.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the origins of Red Rock Furniture, which is our furniture business.
Well, we always loved, like, whenever we're going through a challenge or going through anything in life, we've always thought, oh, there's got to be a better way to do this. Like, and so we're always thinking about business ideas and how we can make things more productive, more efficient. And so that putting those two houses together was a lot of brain damage, as you would say. It was a lot of work. I mean, putting together the patio furniture took a long time. That's just one example.
The
But
bunk
then,
beds.
but then the bunk beds, those were a little challenging. Um, but then even the boxes, getting rid of all the boxes, it's really amazing how much garbage gets generated. And then what do you do with it all? Like, we didn't have, we got rid of the U-Haul because that's what you needed
Yeah.
to get rid of it all. Um, and so we thought, okay, somehow,
People have no idea the amount of like you're moving into a house.
oh
Like you're
yeah,
putting together a whole
everything.
entire
Uh-huh.
house. And so people just think, "Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
this was
going to knock
we had
that
a
out in
four
a few
bedroom house,
hours."
4 bedroom, 4 bath,
Yep.
and then a 5 bedroom, four
Four
bath.
bath. Yep.
So 9 bedrooms, 2 kitchens, 2 family rooms, 2 sets of patio furniture,
Trying to make them look a little different,
and
but
all the bedding, everything in the
so
kitchen,
hard.
everything in the bathrooms, all the towels, all the sheets, all the.
Well, just the kitchen. You have so many dishes, so
Hmm.
many appliances, things
Yeah.
that you put in there. You've got to have spare sheets, and there were a lot of things we did wrong. I'd say, well, what would you say? Let me ask you. What do you well, besides doing those homes ourselves, what other things surprised you about that, or uh what were some of the pain points?
I mean, gathering the furniture from various locations was tough. We should have just sourced it locally, maybe paid a little bit more, but at least it would have been local. We didn't know about any other businesses that did this
At the
type of
time, there
work.
really
We
wasn't
didn't want to
much.
hire an interior designer and pay, a large
I,
hourly rate.
I think they quoted us like 30,000, and so
Mm,
we were like, that's too
that
much
was
just
outside our
for,
budget at the time,
yeah.
and so then you started then you started selling more vacation homes,
Hmm.
and that was a conversation with clients. Well, the very first thing, because they want to have their mortgage paid for as quickly as possible. Like, you want, with it's an investment property, so you want to get it on the market as quickly as possible. Every month that it sits, you're paying the mortgage, you're paying utilities, you're paying internet, and so you want to get income as quickly as possible. And so,
And that's one thing we did wrong too.
hmm, yeah, we took a little longer.
Because we were doing everything ourselves and we had young
Hmm.
kids at the time, we couldn't do everything
Hmm.
all the time. We'd come down there on like a Friday night through a Sunday or even a Saturday night, try to just do things. And so it took us so many months to get on the market. I can't even remember, but it took
Hmm.
us too long. And most people, that's one of the mistakes they make now, is that they think they'll do it themselves.
Yeah.
So then they try, but then they'll leave their house off the market for 6 months, 1 year,
Hmm.
and every month they're making a house payment and they're
Yeah,
not generating income.
that's right. Yeah.
But that was definitely a pain point. I'd say just getting that already. And we didn't, it wasn't like we had like checklists or cool things. I mean, this was early days of
So when
Airbnb
do we
too.
actually officially dive in? Because I know we signed on a lease on a
Hmm.
warehouse. We got some contracts with vendors. We got our business license.
We hired our own interior
We've
designer
we
in house.
we met an incredible woman that's done a lot of houses for us now, and she's amazing
She's
at interior
great.
design. Um, and then we were off and running. Yeah.
And then we
So
looked, and I do remember you did have a moment where you were like, "Are we really doing this?" Because we're about ready to sign a lease on a
hmm,
warehouse,
yeah.
and I was like, "Yeah, we're doing this." so,
Hmm.
so we did. So we jumped in, and maybe tell a little bit why we did the furniture company, like, and how much we charge, because I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's one of the things I think I'm really,
Hmm.
really proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. We can do that. Yeah. We've put together a very affordable model. We have low overhead with warehouse space. We have a small showroom, um, and we have an incredible designer. And so we charge a flat rate on the interior design, and depending on the size of the house, it kind of varies between, you know, a couple of different windows.
And then it's usually between like 2 and 5,000,
Hmm.
usually, depending on the size again of the house and how many
Hmm.
rooms need staging.
Yep.
But that's significantly less
Hmm.
than anybody else in
And then
town.
we get volume pricing from our vendors, and we pass that as much as we can down to our clients.
Yeah, like we
Yeah.
even just did a mattress for
Hmm.
somebody the other day, and
Yeah,
they said, "How are you even selling us that mattress for that price?" And
that's right.
so, and it's a great mattress. It's like we use basically like hospitality
Hmm.
lines
Hmm.
that you can't buy even in a store.
That's right.
And so, I'm really proud of what we're doing with
Yeah.
Red Rock.
Yeah, and we do free delivery to the garage. We'll get it inside the garage for the local area that we're in, St. George area. Um, and then we have a, a great price on hourly setup. We'll do a white glove setup, make sure that it's completely perfect.
Yeah,
Um,
some people,
we
they've
keep
never
it.
seen it at all, their house. They'll do a
That's
new
right.
build,
Hmm.
then they walk in and there's like forks in the drawer and
Yeah.
everything's set up.
Yep. And we are very meticulous about making sure that it's clean. There's tons of styrofoam that gets
It's
generated,
so
so we
much.
make sure that's
Oh,
vacuumed up. It's also very obvious if um, the drywall gets dinged because it's a brand new house. And so we're very careful about making sure that the walls and everything's just the way we found it.
yep.
So,
And we also do what we call a refresh. So
hmm.
we do kind of like if it's not a new build, we'll
Hmm.
do a refresh because we get calls a lot that people just say, "Hey, my
Hmm.
sofa isn't great." We do maybe tell them about our sofas because I love those.
Yeah, we have sectionals. Very popular is a like an L-shaped sectional with a pull-out full-size queen. Um,
The queen
A queen
mattress.
mattress, yep,
That's
and
actually half
the,
comfortable. It's like
it
not so
is
bad.
surprising, yep. And the fabric, we have one that we've had for 3 years now. It's a really royal, it's a darker blue color, and it looks like it's brand new still today.
Yeah, we use
And that
performance fabrics that
and
are
that
stain
house that
proof.
house is rented every weekend,
Yep.
and it's been through a lot.
Because
Uh,
one of the problems we had
mhm.
is we threw away a lot of furniture at those sand hollows because we bought a lot of
Yeah,
things off cheap
we bought one
websites
sectional that had, the reclining seat that
thing.
will pull out, and it's great, it's comfortable, but I think it was out, and then a kid jumped on it when it was out and bent the metal, and those things are nearly impossible to repair. So
Yeah, they're
it's better to
hard.
have as few moving parts as possible. So yeah, we have a custom builder that builds out our sectionals. Um,
And it's very affordable.
mhm, yep.
It's
So we have
around,
all different kinds and
yep,
colors of fabric, a few different models of what
yep.
the armchairs look like. Um, yeah, those have been really,
Yeah, but I really like those because I
really
mean, we had
popular.
our own kid. I was telling him how great the
Hmm.
fabric was, and then he spilled some Dr. Pepper on it,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted to kill him at first. I was like, ah! But then it was a true test of the sofa.
Hmm.
We got it right out. Like you can't even tell
Yeah.
where it was at, and
Hmm.
so those are really nice. But we
Yeah.
do good. So we do refreshes even if somebody's interested in like just doing a
Hmm.
little bit.
Yeah.
Um, we just are not the kind of like if we're not the type of place that like you show up and there's like a showroom that's open like an RC Willie like
Hmm.
24/7 or something. We're
That's
not
right.
that, you
Yeah.
know.
No, our designer works closely with our clients, picks out, their style, really identifies and narrows in what their style is, and then puts together a lookbook, and then go through a couple iterations like that to make sure it's exactly what the clients want, and then we order it and get it installed. And like ideally, the buyer is not at the house at all, and we take care of everything, set it up, and then they show up and they're like, oh,
And then they're
wow,
surprised
amazing,
and they're
yeah.
so happy and they
Hmm.
love it. Okay, so we get questions often. So I'm thinking maybe we should um, talk about some of the questions we get. And so, what are maybe some of the questions
Oh,
you
I think
have?
one question is, how how do I, as a husband or a spouse, help and support you and the things that you do. It's been a lot of fun to watch. It's to see Heather grow, and not limit herself in what she wants to do or be, and her who she wants to help. There with real estate, there are there are stressful times, right? It's very high stakes for for everybody, ourselves included. A house is the most expensive asset that we own, and so there's a lot of emotion because it's just so much money, right? And then there's also emotional ties because it's where people where we raise families, and it's a very personal place, and so to go through a change is difficult. And Heather's really good at helping people go through that. And kind of I've heard her say, it's blessed. This home has blessed your life, and now it's an opportunity for someone. It's a new chapter in someone else's life, and it's going to bless their life as well. So you found ways to really help people find the joy in that transition. Um, the other thing I love to watch is like something always comes up that's like has to be done immediately, or it's complex and has to be figured out. And with real estate, there's not you don't you can't procrastinate. You can't say, oh, well, we'll get to this tomorrow. It's like, no, you solve it right now, and whatever it takes, it's all hands on deck till this crisis is resolved. And you take that approach, and it's pretty impressive to watch.
Our advice to couples that are in business together.
Yeah.
Okay, you start.
Let's see. Okay. One thing that I try to do is I can see when Heather is like on task. And I know what it's like for me, like when I like to stay on point and kind of like stay focused on one topic. And so I when I see Heather's involved in it, she's on her phone all the time. But she's texting or talking to somebody. Like I don't try to say, "Oh, whatever I need to talk to you about is so important that you got to stop." And I observe what she's doing, and then I'll ask questions like, "Is now a good time for the next topic?" Right? Um, but I don't try to disrupt your flow in what you're working on.
That is
Uh,
something that's really helpful. I would say, and that is something that I think people don't realize. So I like that, Brent, a lot of times he'll have like little notes like, okay, here's the three things we need to talk about later, or different items, because
mhm,
it's easier if I'm not interrupted, if I can just pound out some things, sometimes. So like you're saying, like when you're
mhm,
in your focus zone, I think that's important. Same thing with Brent. And like I just have to kind of know um, when he's busy on something and when he's I would say in the right like mental mode. And I mean by that, just, it's like if you're really stressed out and you're working on something and you can't really think about other things, you're not going to make the best decisions
mhm,
during that time. That's just for anyone. And
mhm,
so I think you have to just be kind of at that right stage.
mhm.
And even sometimes at night, like, it's like, okay, here's what the download for the day,
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, I think that that's actually really, really good advice.
Yeah. I think unwind at the end of the day is good. Um, just depends on the week, but we unwind
Yeah.
sometimes with news,
So that's
sometimes
really
with
totally.
Netflix binging, but
Yeah.
kind of just get our minds off of the day, and get prepped for the next.
Yeah. We have to just both at some point just have like,
Hmm.
hey, let's just hang out together and
Hmm.
talk about something other than work and other than family. Like,
Hmm.
you know, just chat about stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Hmm.
think that's really good. I like that. I'd
Hmm.
say my piece of advice is also um, kind of recognizing. I think we tend to people look at other people's weaknesses, and I think you've got to really reverse that when you're married, and especially when you're working together. And you've got to say, okay, what are their strengths, and how can I support their strengths? And are any of their weaknesses things that I'm strong in? Because if it's an area that I'm strong in, then I can help out more in that area.
Hmm.
So, marriage isn't 50-50; it's 100 and 100. And it's, figuring out how to make that dynamic work and help each other be their best self, right? And so I
Hmm.
think too often times people try to change other people and say, okay, well, they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And, it's maybe just not their strength, and so don't take it personally. But instead ask yourself, is that an area that I can help out in instead? And I remember one time just seeing this little headline, like in, I think it was like the newspaper, like Deseret News or Salt Lake Tribune or something, and it said something about, instead of focusing so much on, finding a soulmate, why don't you just become that person? Like become someone else's soulmate, but basically improve yourself, be the person you want to be, and that way you're having a more complementary marriage,
Hmm.
and I think that's the way we have to be in our business. And there's times where I know I probably drive Brent totally nuts, and I'll be on something and he'll be like, okay. But I can tell he doesn't get ruffled about it. He's just like, okay, that's just,
So
that's a
one
Heather
thing
moment.
it is, but
That's
one
a,
thing that I've tried over the last six months even is to not just be okay, but actually recognize that as a strength. Like, so here's one example,
I'm
right?
afraid.
We were we were in the car getting ready to go into a restaurant, and our friends or family they were waiting for us already. But Heather was in the middle of a call with a client, and one of your great qualities is that whoever you're with, like they're the most important person, and you take whatever time you need to talk through whatever they want to talk through, and you don't let you don't get worried about what the next thing is or who's waiting for me next. It's like the present moment, who you're with, just take whatever time is needed. And so, I could get annoyed, say, "Oh, well, hurry, our friends are waiting for us. You got to hurry," or I could just be quiet. But I've tried to point out that as a quality now, like, so you're comfortable even more so with the conversation, not thinking that I'm holding anything against you or our family is or anybody. It's just
Yes, and you've done a
recognize
great job of
recognize that as a
that.
quality
Yeah.
and as a strength.
So I feel like we need to ask Brent a few more questions. So I'm just going to generate these. And
I can plead the fifth or
no, none of that. None of that. I'm just going to say, how, well, first of all, did you ever think you would be be involved so much in real estate? Like earlier in life,
Mhm.
you were into computers, you were into other things.
I don't know. I mean, I had my days in trading stocks and thought I would be successful there, and that didn't pan out. So there had to be something else. I don't know when I thought about real estate. After we'd done it a few times, I realized we're actually pretty good at
Really good at
we're
this.
pretty good at
Yeah.
this. Maybe a little bit to figure out, but it's like it's really not that hard. It's water. I
Right.
mean,
And
when
what
you
you mean
boil
by
it
that is
down,
everything can be fixed. It's like when I
everything can be
walk it through a
fixed.
house, somebody goes,
Exactly.
"Can this be done?" And I'm like, "Listen, everything can be done. It's
Yeah.
just at what price is it going
Hmm.
to be at?"
Maybe I
You
get that
know?
a little bit from software as well. Because in
Yes.
software, you can design and create whatever you want. And worst thing that can happen is, oh, you have to reboot it.
Right.
But it's a good attitude in life, is
I like that. You
not
can
be afraid,
reboot. Yeah.
not be afraid of, oh, if I do this thing, I'm going to break the computer. Well, it's not going to be that bad. You just restart it, and
Right.
delete the file, whatever it is. I mean, the computers are resilient,
Yes. Well,
and so the similar in real estate.
yeah.
We can figure out where our
We can
problems
figure out
are.
the problems.
Uh huh.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So I don't know why.
But did you ever think that you'd be a landlord and own a furniture
Never,
business?
never thought that I would. No. Yeah.
I
It's
don't think
been.
it ever crossed my
Mm-hmm.
mind either.
Mm-hmm.
Like earlier in life, like I never
Yeah.
really thought of that I would be an investor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people
Mm-hmm.
don't really think that they will be. But I think that's actually one of the things that they make a mistake in thinking that way,
Mm-hmm.
because I have clients that are now like dentists that are investors,
Yeah.
doctors. I've got
Mm-hmm.
even,
Yeah.
people that, never thought that they would have that track. But then,
Yeah.
they've learned that you can make money and grow wealth. And it's really not just all about that. It's kind of help. It's just an aspect of your portfolio. And we've
Hmm.
talked about that several
Yeah.
times that,
Hmm.
it's like, it's important to I still tell my clients, hey, don't rely on everything in the housing market either. You really want to be
Hmm.
diverse and have, stocks, and you want to have, like, we have a
Hmm.
diverse portfolio. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just real estate. Most people would think that we have only real estate, but we don't. And
Hmm.
I tell people it's also just like in the stocks and bonds market and CDs, there's diversity there. You really want to have a diverse portfolio in real estate as well. So,
Hmm.
not just all of one product.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let me think. Any other question that I need to ask you?
Hmm.
I would say, what's something? Well, let's see. Besides, what's your favorite ice cream?
Costco vanilla.
That's funny. He does like that Costco vanilla a lot.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, besides that, what are some other, like, of your goals in the next few years?
Goals in the next few years.
I'm putting you on the spot because we've got to start thinking about this,
Hmm.
like, for next
Do we want
year,
this on
you
record?
know? Yes, I'm like afraid now because we
I don't
really have
know.
not had this. This is not pre-rehearsed, by the way. None of this today has been rehearsed, for good or bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I just started reading the book 10X, and
It's 10x is better than 2x, which I have
10X is
not
better
read,
than
but I've heard it's
2X.
good.
Yeah. And I'm in like 45 minutes or so, but so far I really like what it's talking about. And I want to apply that to all aspects of my life to be
Maybe
successful.
describe what it is.
So in 30 seconds, basically, um, the thought in a business, if you want to, the traditional thought is, well, how do we grow our business 10% or 20%? And what that often causes, you could think of, 1,000 different ways to grow your business by 10% or 20%. Um, and that's the one side of it. So it generates all these ideas. And then to try to narrow down, well, which one should I do today, kind of causes often a non-start situation, right? The other thing that it creates is it creates a feeling of being overwhelmed. So the one was 20%, but actually if you do 2x, then the traditional thought for your brain is, oh, I'm doing all this stuff today, and if I doubled my workload, that's like, how in the world would I do that? It's
It's
overwhelming. It's
overwhelming.
overwhelming. It creates a feeling of scarcity and fear. So when we start to think about 10x, then it changes our mindset. Our mind thinks, okay, there's actually, instead of the 10 to 20% gain where there's 100 things you can do, there's maybe only two or three that would give us the 10x factor. And then it also doesn't create a problem of like being overwhelmed at the 2x scenario, because the 10x thought is, it's so radically different that your mind changes its focus to be more like um, intuitive and really think creatively rather than, oh, how could I double that? So,
I have a feeling you might be back as a guest.
really,
Just saying. Yes, I think we'll have you back for round two
okay,
at some
only
point.
once.
Yes. Well, thanks for coming.
Okay,
And now you get to go back upstairs and work, your other job.
okay.
So, well, thanks again. And thanks for
Mhm.
tuning in today.
Yes, thank you.